Yeah, the call of wild's always bringing me home. Call of wild's always bringing me home. Call of wild's always bringing me home.
Well, hello, wild ones. Welcome to another episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. I am so excited to have my guest, Bewitching Titanilla, today. Titanilla is her actual name. Bewitching Titanilla is her name on Instagram. How are you doing today?
Hello, and I'm very excited to be here
Me
on
too.
Find Your Wild. What a great day!
Oh, I'm very excited. So, you messaged me this morning and you told me that you mentioned to the bees that you were going to be on today.
Yes, I am constantly communicating with my bees, so whenever there is big happenings in the household, I go out and inform them. It was so cute because when I was talking, because I talk loud so that they know and recognize my voice.
Yeah.
A couple of them did fly out, even though it was freezing cold, but they were just like
Oh.
out and check that what's going on while I'm sitting in the cold with them. But yeah, they definitely heard me. So they are
Oh,
here with us.
I love that. And uh, for people that don't know, there's a legend about making sure that you're communicating with the bees too, right?
Yes, it's an old Irish tradition, the telling the bees. So officially this is to inform the bees about big happenings like death in the family, marriage, a birth, a war, anything that is really significant. And but I kind of like to tell them everything. And to be honest, this is a very significant happening because this is our first podcast interview, and I'm very happy to present the bees today.
I'm very honored that we are your first podcast as well, and I'm so excited because we had a little get to know you chat, and I feel like I learned so much, so I'm so excited for people listening to learn what you've learned over the years too.
Yeah. I'm a bit like I don't know which angle should I come because there's so much knowledge that needs to be shared and passed on. Because genuinely speaking, I think people love bees, and it's so interesting because many of them have a little fear as well as love. I do meet people constantly saying that, oh, well, I love the bees, but I'm also terrified of them. So it's just so interesting how they can hold so much emotion and so much
Yeah.
love, but fear too. And I think that's something that we need to debunk. There's no need to be scared of the bees. Unless you're
Yeah.
not walking onto their hive and, start to shake it, they will not get mad with you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let's start a little bit from the beginning and how you first started your connection with the bees and keeping your own beehive.
Yeah. I have been a natural beekeeper for 4 years now. It is a short amount of time, but it does feel much longer. I don't remember the time when I didn't have bees in my life. But I never thought I would become one, and it's not because I didn't want. I just never believed that could happen to me. Become a beekeeper. Such an amazing thing. And
Yeah.
4 years ago, I was presented with an opportunity through a Facebook advert to become a beekeeper assistant of an 81-year-old Irish beekeeper, Bob. And I almost talked myself out of it to not apply because, I have no any experience. Why would he pick me? There has been hundreds of people applying for this position, but he did pick me. And from that point, everything just escalated in that way. Everything
Yep.
just happened. And
Yeah.
soon after that, I ended up with bees in my garden, and I had to work out how to keep them alive and safe. But before I physically became in contact with the bees, I always had a relationship with them. Even as a child, I loved stopping at flowers and watching them. And yeah, I love animals, and I've always been very open to make contact with them. And what was really amazing with the bees, that they really forced me to put down my ego and my humanness. That's not working when you're trying to build a relationship with a non-human. The ways how we do it is through words and communication. That kind of things will not really work with anything else but humans. Maybe dogs and cats, but even cats don't always. We know that.
Right.
But
yeah.
when you are surrounded with thousands of venomous animals, you have to find ways to communicate with them, because otherwise they're going to sting you.
Right.
And yeah, the bees force us to put down the ego and go back to this ancient primal way of communicating, and bringing them food, and doing these little rituals that builds trust, and eventually the relationship deepens.
It's so beautiful because you've even said, like, at the beginning, they come out, they hear your voice, they recognize you, they know you bring food, that you aren't doing them any harm.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, I can't believe that, it can. I mean, last summer there were bees flying to me with their little tongues out, because they learn that I always have food, I always have a sticky hand or gloves, so there is always something to lick off from me, basically. And they know that, they recognize face, they recognize sound, they recognize your scent.
It's so fascinating to me, and I think it's so beautiful too. And you also are a historian too, right? So you know a lot of the history behind this, but you were telling me before, we have a very ancient connection to bees and beekeeping too, right?
Yes, it goes back to millennia. I mean, we have cave paintings from ancient times of humans harvesting honey. Bees were always very, very important for us humans. We evolved together, and we need each other to evolve. They are our most important allies on this planet. They changed the word to a suitable word that we call home. Before the honeybees, we had very different fauna, we had very different plants, and 100 million years ago, honeybees appeared, and things started to change. Different kind of flowers started to appear, and it took some time until this planet became a good place for mammals and eventually for us. And we owe a lot to the bees. They made this possible.
I love that our connection is so tied to them, and that I feel like maybe people don't always recognize the importance of bees and what they've done for us too.
Yeah, and it's not just the honey. I mean, that's, the sweetest reward at all. And, the other animals are trying to steal the honey too. Bears, birds, many things.
Right.
But there is another very important substance that they make and was really crucial for our evolution, is the beeswax. It's a sticky material. It's amazing to light fire with. It can heal. It can glue stuff, and propolis as well. That's the other thing that they make, and that's also a sticky material, perfect
Right.
for healing wounds and creating tools. So it was really, really valuable for our ancestors for many reasons beyond the honey.
Yeah, that sorry if you hear my dog barking in the background.
That's okay.
Somebody's here.
Okay.
Um But I love that it's, especially for our ancient primal selves, right? Like we needed to find things that were super valuable to us and that there's so many different uses.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to value the bee and notice what they give to us and to hopefully now be able to give back and make sure that they're saved because I know their numbers are dwindling down, so their importance is really valuable to highlight.
Yes, there is something I want to correct because it's a common misconception that honeybees are struggling as a species and facing extinction. That's not the case with the honeybees.
Yeah.
So their
Okay.
numbers are stable. What is bad for them is the way how we keep them. So conventional beekeeping practices are based and built on techniques and practices that are exploiting the bees, essentially, tricking them to produce and produce and produce and suppressing other important natural instincts. And on top of
Right.
that, we are messing with their genetics, breeding queens and all of that. That's not good for the evolution
Mhm.
of the species. So natural beekeepers like myself, we try to work with the bees rather than managing them like in conventional
Right.
practices. But that means that we will never have that much honey yields than a conventional beekeeper because all the practices are there to maximize their production. So
What are some of the things that they do to maximize it that's like a difference between the natural, like what you do and what they do?
one of the main things that I allow my bees to do is the swarming. That's the natural reproduction. And many beekeepers will do, we call it splitting them, so that instead of letting them swarm out and do their dance, that's very good for them. They need to have that move. We need to see that, well, they need to see that the queen bee is strong enough to fly, because the more we don't let them do it, the more these queens are becoming bigger and they will not be able to fly eventually. This happened to the silk moths. We keep them for producing silk. But throughout the centuries, because we were breeding them selectively, they now lost the ability to exist on their own. So if humanity wipes out, the silk moth's gonna go because it can't survive in nature. And what we do with not letting them swarm and so on, and getting artificially inseminated queens, we are playing with their survival going forward. So this is something that I let them do. And now I know that, for example, swarming in certain countries or, by legislation is not allowed. There are laws and legislation that, controls what the beekeeper can do and can't do. But here, luckily in Scotland, we don't have anything like this. And I am living in an area where the bees have this space to swarm. So I let them do it, and it results with really healthy and strong colonies. So ever since I have been looking after my bees on my own without my mentor. I mean, I have my mentor, I can call him anytime, but I'm physically dealing with my bees on my own, and I didn't have a loss. They are all going, they are all thriving and strong. My old beekeeper mentor did not want to believe that I haven't had a loss yet.
Wow.
He said all of his experienced beekeeper friends from these associations, and so they are dealing with massive amount of loss and death because we overmanage them.
Yeah, you're building their resiliency by allowing their natural instincts to take place because there's a reason why those natural instincts are in place because it builds something in them to strengthen them, which is amazing.
So in a way, I'm letting them find their wild. I'm trying to to interfere as little as possible. And I also spend time with them regularly, sitting by the hives, listening the hum they make, watching what comes in and out. There is so much things that we can gather just by listening and observing them, without going in and bothering them. It's a big stress when we open a beehive. You have to be really like focused and centered on what you need to do, and move very slowly. But it is a huge stress. It's like what I can compare it. It's like when you do an operation on a body. You don't just go. The surgeon doesn't just go in and start cutting. It requires investigation, planning, a team to come together and plan the moves. And this is a little bit like that. You try to be as little stress and annoyance for the bees as possible. And after they need recovering, they need about 5-7 days to seal everything back, to heal the skin. Because every time you open a hive, it's like breaking the skin, really. They will have to put propolis again all over those cracks so that they keep the air out. And it's a big thing, and it's an honor to be there and like look into. And that's the problem when we are talking about conventional beekeeping. A lot of these beekeepers have massive operations, hundreds and thousands of beehives. That's not good. Bees naturally don't live as cramped. And, that's when disease spreads, and beekeepers are forced to work really fast because they have hundreds of hives to go in. They use the same tools, passing around all the mites and disease. It's just,
That's so interesting, because I definitely, the more that I talk to you, the more that I'm realizing how intricate and detailed and delicate, the bee and the beehive is. It makes sense that it's almost like an open surgery. I mean, you think about the safety of the house, the hive, and how safe that is for them, and it makes sense that it's like open surgery, right? To go inside and to take a look. And what would be like some of the reasons that you would open a hive to go in? Is it just for honey, or?
No, well, you kind of need to see if everything is okay inside so that you can be the most support. In natural beekeeping, we try to minimize these enterings, but when, in the beginning of the season, with the spring, it is more frequent. I would say every 10-14 days, you look in, and you just want to see that the queen bee is healthy. So you want to see brood, larvae. You want to see a healthy nest. You want to see food, pollen and nectar and honey. And you also want to kind of like feel into the vibe. Are these happy bees? If they are not, why not? What's going on? Sometimes it's just a bad day, because let's not forget that these are mainly female creatures. So over 90% of the beehive consists of females, worker bees. And of course, they are all in different age and life cycle. And one of them is young and playful and, just like very childish. Then you have the guard bees. They're going to be more on alert, and they're going to be keeping an eye on you constantly. And if you do something wrong, they're going to warn you. They're going to like knock on your beekeeping hat to back off. And if you don't back off, they're going to come for you in larger numbers. So as a beekeeper, you have kind of a chance to listen. And, if you think that they are all okay and you see all kind of positive signs, you don't have to puff around any longer. You just close them up and let them be. But sometimes when you are concerned about something, there is some signs of disease, or you don't see any larvae. It happened with one of one of my hive, I'm still not sure if they're going to make it through the winter, because in September, on my last inspection, I did not see any brood. So it immediately gave me that thought that there is something wrong with the queen. And I knew that this is a new queen. So I think what happened is that the summer was really bad in Scotland, but in the UK was very wet, and a lot of the queen get lost in the weather, in the rain. They are not great they're not great flying big distances. And if the weather changes while they are out on their mating flight, they don't come back, and the bees stay there without a queen. Without a queen, the hive can survive because she's the only one who can lay eggs. So, and on September, I know that was the end of the season. There is less boy to mate with. So what's gonna happen? But I have to say that they are still alive. So whenever I knock on the hive, I can hear them humming. So they are still there, but I don't know what's going on inside there at the moment. That's also something that you have to accept, that sometimes you just don't know, and you don't have to know. And this is how...
sorry. I was just going to ask you, you don't go in the winter, right?
No.
Because, that makes sense.
Many beginner beekeepers makes that mistake that, on a mild day, they're just gonna go in to look in to see if everything is okay. That's the worst thing anybody can do, because I already mentioned that, whenever you open a hive, you essentially break their skin. If we think that the hive is similar to the human body, you just cut the skin. And this time of the year, it takes much longer to seal those cracks with propolis, because it's not the season for them to go out to forage. It will mean that they will consume more honey. They will go through their honey stores longer, and the hive gonna get all the drafts through these cracks, and the bees gonna get cold and probably die.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why it's important to monitor the bees throughout the season, but not excessively. A little bit more in the beginning of the season, and then you just leave them more and more on their own. And you do a final check in the autumn. You kind of see how much food they are going in, and then you kind of hope for the best from that point.
Right. But I love you can hear their humming, and let's hope, fingers crossed, they make it. So that's promising, though.
Yeah, it's as I say, I never had a dying hive yet. I know it will come at some point, because it's also a part, and that's also something I want to bring in death, because the bees are deeply connected to death. And because of the conventional practices and capitalism, and that beekeepers are really forced to try to make money out of their bees, we don't really let the bees die. Beekeepers will step in, they will put a new queen in, or they will use synthetic chemicals and, human-made medicines there, chemicals there. And we have to remember that they have to die. Weak colonies, weak bee families need to go, so that they give space for the stronger genetics. So for the Darwini evolution to happen, we have to let these hives go, because when they die, it means that they are just not suited to the landscape anymore, or they are too weak to sustain themselves. They should have everything in the hive themselves without us. They don't need human medicine.
Right. That's super important. And, another aspect of what you do, right, is being a death doula, which I found so incredibly fascinating. And you said that the bees are inherently, like, connected
Yeah.
to death.
Yes. I was typically that person who was always quite triggered by the topic of death. I didn't really allow myself to think about it, let alone talk about it with someone. It would deeply, it was a bad omen for me to let myself be in this topic. But when you are a beekeeper and when you have a spiritual relationship with the bees, they kind of hold up a mirror and they make you see yourself in the way they see you. And when you are working with bees, death is always gonna be there, because where there are bees, there will be dead bees too. That was one of the first lessons my old Irish mentor told me, that you have to accept death, because where there is life, there is death. And it's so true. So in the height of the summer, when the beehive is the biggest, it has the biggest amount of bees in, we are talking 40,000-60,000 bees around the summer solstice time. It means that the queen is laying about 2,000 eggs a day.
Wow.
So it means that about 2,000 baby bees are getting born every day. And about 1,500 bees dies every day. So you will happen to be there. You're gonna see bees dying and getting born. And seeing bees getting born is very cute. It's a very cool experience. It's so, you can actually sense the bees' joy. The brood, the larvae is very important for the bees. They build the nest in a way that protects them the most. They spend their life to care for the little ones. That's their future. But seeing them coming out from the little hexagon cells, all gray and fuzzy, and after you could see that there's gonna be a bee immediately attending to that baby, feeding, grooming. There's so much love and care, and you're gonna see the boy bees, because that's also something that conventional beekeepers have not much respect for the boy bees, because they don't forage, they eat the honey, and they useless, and they attract mites because they are bigger, so their cells are bigger, and mites like to go in there and cause disease and stuff. So there is a practice in conventional beekeeping that is called drone cooling, and that means to removing all the boy cells by squashing them, cutting them out, and it's just, when I seen that, I knew that was that point when I knew that I will never be able to do that. I can't just go in a house to someone to start squashing stuff in there. No.
Yeah.
So it was like a big trigger for me. And ever since, I learned so much about the boy bees. Like, okay, they're primarily there to mate, but only a small percentage will be strong and fast enough to end up mating. But the others are also there, and they have a function. So they're going to be placed usually around the brood, so that they can keep the babies warm, because they are bigger and fuzzier, and they also have like a deeper home, which is very crucial for the developing larvae. If there isn't enough drone around the nest, the bees, the worker bees, gonna become less motivated to forage, so they're not gonna have much food. So they are literally the troubadours of the hives. They sing to the baby bees. They tell ancient stories of the land, because that's what they do. These drone bees, they're gonna go out from the hive when the sun is the highest, and they will look for the queens, and that's their thing. They want to mate. But while they do that, they experience the land from a different perspective, and with their vibration, when they come back, they talk about that to the babies, so that when they do grow up and come out as a bees, they want to go and see it themselves. I think it's just so
That's so beautiful.
magical.
That is unbelievable, and I did not know that, but you know, it's so amazing because it actually kind of reminds me. I was talking to someone else earlier on one of my other podcasts that dolphins, when their babies are in the womb, they have a specific name for them in their language, and they're, you know, talking to them in their stomachs, and when they're born, they know their name. And it so reminds me of this, where it's like the ancient stories and then also the legends and the storytelling that bees are so associated with, like having to tell them about significant things. That makes so much more
Mm.
sense now when you think about the drone bees talking to the larvae. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's beautiful.
Hi, Wild Ones. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. This episode is sponsored by my clothing brand, FemmeSauvage, and you can find a discount code and link in the description. So check it out. We have a lot of amazing designs, and $5 of the proceeds goes to different charities. So please feel free to check it out and enjoy the rest of the episode. Thanks so much.
Beautiful, but also like, you know, how
Beautiful.
beautiful this is. The other side of the coin again is death, because
Right.
ultimately the drones going to die either while they mate with the queen, or if they don't get the chance to mate by the end of the season, the female bee is going to kick them out. You know, there is only a limited amount of bees gonna go into the winter, just enough to keep the queen bee warm for the next season. So the boys are sacrificed in either way. Even if they mate, they're gonna die when they mate a queen. Their abdomen explodes the minute
Wow.
the mating happens, or yeah, they're gonna get kicked out. And it's very sad, but also it's part of their evolution. That's how their story has been written for millions of years. So
Right.
death is something as well that is so beautifully done in the beehive, because that was the story of the boys. The female bees, they will always try to die outside the hive on their own, because they constantly thinking about the others. So they want to spare their sister bees the task of, you know, carrying them out from the hive, because essentially that means more energy is getting consumed. So you're always going to see old bees clinging onto a grass or a flower just around the hive, and yeah, they die there on their own, alone, which is really interesting, because they spend their lifetime surrounded by their family. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. He had something that he wanted to say, right? It's a cricket.
No, it was my phone ringing. I just don't know
Oh,
why it is connected to the Bluetooth when I put it into quiet.
that's
I'm so sorry.
so that's okay. I thought it was a cricket, which is funny because one of my other podcasts, somebody else had a cricket hop in too, like a
Nice.
real
Yeah, it
cricket.
is the sound of a cricket. Anyway, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh,
That's
you
okay.
threw me off.
No worries.
Where was I?
I had something to add to
Yes.
that too, is the, you know, the fact that those bees spend all of their life focused on family, which is so beautiful, and then their final sacrifice is also in thinking of their family and to be by themselves, even though they've never been by themselves. It's like the ultimate
Yeah.
self-sacrifice to make sure that the family doesn't have to expend any more energy, because they know what it's like to have to keep the hive alive is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it is. And
Yeah.
you know, that was my first experience with that. So going back to how I became a death doula, I'm sorry, it's a big
Yes.
story. It's a big story.
No, it's beautiful. I love how this is connecting. Yeah.
That was the first. So the first time I witnessed death one on one was holding a bee. because I found the bee. I started to notice these bees, and of course I got all emotional. That, oh, I have to help these bees. I have to save them, and they just died. I've been holding them on their final moments, and it was really emotional. I never been around death before, even though I had family members passing and pets passing. I was at the funeral, but I haven't been around when it happened.
Right.
And it was like a big initiation in that sense, seeing a little creature going very emotional. I was in tears and holding these bees, but it also showed me that there is so much that I need to learn about it. What is that?
Right.
When you hold even like a little bee, it will make you reflect on your own mortality and on death itself. They made me question this relationship, and they made me understand that in order to have a full life, I need to acknowledge death. And how do we do that? So I applied and went for a death doula course, Deathwives. If anybody is interested, they are great ladies, based in America somewhere. I don't know which state. Amazing teachers. And it was the first time I learned about that. I learned the physical aspect of dying, how that looks in humans. And then I was researching how it looks specifically in bees. That's why it's good that I'm a historian, because at university, I learned how to do a research and read science papers and so I have that academic background that makes research much easier. So I learned about death and dying, and almost straight away I started to do death meditations in women's circles, and I seen how much this is a trigger in people. It's everybody has and after going through a meditation like that, very powerful. And what made it to the next level was when I started to bring in the bee home, because at the same time how I was doing the researches, I discovered that bees are in many cultures, across cultures, considered as psychopomps, which is an ancient Greek word for guides of the soul. So whenever we come in as souls to earth, the bees guide us in, and when we go back, the bees guide us out. And that's one of their spiritual job. So bees are so much more than beyond honey. That's one of the things that they do. Our evolution connected.
Yeah, that's incredibly powerful. That was one of the things that when we chatted initially that I had no idea about their significance of being a psychopomp and their connection with death. But the more that you described how almost short their life cycle is, and the sacrifices they make for the young, and it's the connections that we as humans have with that, right? Like how focused we are on our children and the future is incredible, and that connection is still a millennia later very strong. Same similarities.
Yeah. The only thing that really changed is us. So that's the thing. We have forgotten this connection. In ancient times, Egypt, Greece, we have been using them in rituals. We've been connecting with them. They helped us deliver messages to the other world. They helped us enhance the offerings for the gods, or they were there, and it was always beyond honey. And honey was never something that was cheaply available for everyone. It was a highly precious substance. In ancient Egypt, we found over 900 medicine recipes from ancient Egyptians textbooks, these hieroglyphs, and over 500 them includes honey.
Wow.
So it was a part of medicine. It was a part of rituals connecting to the gods, to the other words. And yeah, we have forgotten that. We're solely focusing on honey, 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 and happened all the time. And we are so disconnected, right? We are so disconnected from it all, from our food, from nature, from other creatures. And this is now the time, I think every kind of spirit animal is trying to reach out to their human, right? It is time to find our way back and start to see that change has to come, because we are all here on this planet for a reason, for a purpose, to elevate the planet.
Yeah.
And we need to put away the capitalistic mindset. We need to slow down, and we need to start listening what these ancient ancestors are telling us, because they are older than us. They have been here longer than us. They know and experienced more than us.
And it's amazing when we, are, sitting and listening to their hum, right? Like their ancient stories. They're like our storytellers. Like they have our history known for so long. And it reminds me of like the value, how some people, and especially throughout history, that like something, especially animals, are only of value if they provide something for us, which obviously bees are very valuable and they do provide that. But also the fact that they are psychopomps, this spiritual connection that they have to us, I think is so important to recognize that, I think that, like you said in the beginning, we need to get rid of our ego in regards to certain things and recognize that beings have value in just their natural forms and their natural way of being, not just their value in what they provide for us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's time. And I think what is also important to mention here is that you don't have to be a beekeeper to have a relationship with the bees. They have their own unique ways to appear in our lives. They often appear in dreams. They often appear in, you see something and there's a book about the bees. There is so many ways that you can learn and open your heart to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember over the summer, it must have been an older bee or something, but like I saw, I don't know whether it was a boy or girl, but I saw a little bee dead in or looked like it was dying. And my husband also really is drawn and fascinated with bees as well. And I remember it was that night, so we just kind of gave him a little bit of like honey, sugar, like tried to get him, and then we put him in a flower, and then he was there or she was there the next morning. So just giving her that little extra boost, and then she went off. So who knows if she went off maybe to get closer to the hive or to just continue on. But I love giving them a little boost if I can, even if it's in their last little stage, just to
Yeah, interestingly, if a bee is on their deathbed, they will refuse to have honey. So that's what I experience. That's how I usually know if a bee is like dying, because that's very similar to humans as well. So because we are humans, this is again something that we do. We want to comfort our loved ones. And often, even when somebody is on a deathbed, we will keep trying to force food down. But there is a point when food is not useful, when the body is trying to shut down, and the body knows, when somebody is saying no and they are, on the way to the other side, you kind of have to respect that. And bees are very similar. It's always a good test. If you put down a little honey, if the bee is gonna take it, it's gonna go home. But sometimes they just refuse to do that, and that's when you know that just waiting for the light to come. Oh, and I wanted to say, so that was probably a female. If it's a honeybee, it was a female honeybee that you've seen, because only the females forage. So whenever we see honeybees out on flowers, they're always girls. It's not the same with bumblebees because they both forage.
Oh, okay. So interesting. And it's cool the difference between the species of bees and their their own intricate importance in the environment too.
Yeah, they are amazing. I mean, there is so many different species, and that's also something that was why I may be mentioning that, honeybees are not native to many continents. So they evolved in Africa, they evolved in Europe and Asia, and everywhere else where we see honeybee now, we see them because we took them with us. It just shows that, historically speaking, they were always very important for us to take them on our land searching journeys. Yes. So as beekeepers, we always have to keep that in mind. So if somebody wants to become a beekeeper, that's one question that you kind of have to consider. Are the bees are native to your landscape originally? If yes, yeah. If no, you can still have them, but you have to keep in mind that you have to monitor their numbers, because you do not want to pressure the native species. So you will have to assess the land to see if there is enough forage. Do you see other bees, honeybees foraging without your bees? It's always a little research before you set up your apiary. You kind of have to know the landscape before.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because you don't want to disturb the natural comings and goings of the land either.
Yeah, it is I would say that this is completely like a heart-centered approach. You're not bringing here to your ego and that I have to make money here, but you have to look into this space and make decisions from heart.
Absolutely. And I wanted to go back to the recording you did of the buzzing in regards to your relation with the death duel. So if you want to describe that a little bit. Yeah. I thought that was amazing.
It's all being inspired by the bees. Again, I was reading after how they appear in cultures, and also the health benefits of the bee hum, because the hum that they make with moving their wings creates a frequency that is very stimulating to our nervous system. So it actually triggers certain part of the brain, the amygdala, if I'm correct. And I think, I think I pronounced it right, amygdala. So it is.
Yep.
Okay. It is associated with the third eye. So I started to read that people who are open to listen to bee hum, they started to describe how it makes them feel. And many people were saying that, they feel like a tingling around the third eye. And it is, something that I would also say that that's also what I feel. It's very calming. It's very soothing. So it anyway puts you into a really relaxed state of mind. But when you are doing a death meditation, you are really rehearsing your dying process. So this is what a death meditation is. You really try to feel in to that physical aspect of dying, which is really scary for many people. It's quite a scary experience. But what we have to understand, that we all going to be there. We all going to be there. And the more prepared we are, the less scary that experience gonna be. We're going to feel more in control. We can prepare for our death. We can have a plan. We can we can have death meditations before, and when you are there, you kind of in a place that you already kind of visited. And when you start to invite in the bees, you're not alone in that experience then. When we die,
Right.
our hearing is the last thing that goes. The hearing is the last sense that fades away. So that's why it's always recommended be quiet and talk quietly around the dying, because the sense that hearing is quite heightened. That's the last one that is very clear, And
Yeah.
when you start to play the bee hum with it, that will still stimulate the right parts in your body. So it's going to help you feel calmer, and you're already going to have an experience with them because you did these death meditations before. It's like calling in
Right.
your spirit animal to help you connect with what is next, what you actually know already, because that's also something I learned from the bees. You go home, you go to a place where you already been.
Mm. Oh, it's so powerful and beautiful too. And, it reminds me, talking about how disconnected we are, but, especially because I've struggled with my mental health, but, when we try to push away like our shadow side and like our, what
Mm.
sometimes we view as like negative, so like things like our anger or, things that make us depressed or that are
Yeah,
hard to necessarily think of right away, or in your forefront of your mind, and you're just pushing it, the more you're going to have this like knee-jerk reaction of it being uncomfortable. So it really reminds me a lot of this process of death. And because we all go there one day, right? Like so many people every day face anxiety and sadness and depression. And the more you can actually, bring it up and move through it and talk with it and resonate with it, it actually makes it less scary or like exactly what you're talking about. It makes it easier to move through.
yeah,
So, even learning in death can help us, like you said, live.
yeah, yeah. It's a powerful exercise, and I think the more we allow ourselves to plan it and get prepared for it, the less we're going to resist it. Because that's what, all
Yeah.
this anxiety. I am someone who has a lot of anxiety. I have health anxiety that been triggered through COVID and so on. It's been quite hard in the last couple of
Yeah.
years, mental health wise. But
Yeah.
again, the be whom, it's just an instant relief. It
Yeah.
it helps you stop that resistance, because when you have this resistance in you, you pull your tummy in, you make your womb very small because you tighten everything up in there, and that's what then stops your flow. That's when your energy gets plugged, and anxiety start to build up, and when we have that's when depression and all of that can build up on that. It's very easy, I think, today to develop any kind of symptoms on this. Yeah, but the bee
Yeah.
boom is medicine. It's medicine for our nervous system. And actually that's something I also like hoping to start this year, for the local community, having beehive sittings when you just come
Mm.
on a summer day when the bees are out and active, to just sit with them, notice them, enjoy their home. Not, it doesn't even have to have any talk, but of course if you have a question, I'm happy to answer. But people make the mistakes that they start straight away going for a beekeeping experience, straight in the beehive, and it can feel overwhelming. I remember clearly my first time around the beehives. I never been around beehives before, and when I went with Bob, I got stung straight away. 5 minutes. I don't think I've been around the bees 5 minutes. I already got stung. Like it was just so
Yeah.
intense. It was very hectic. I think I was quite hectic, excited, don't know what to do. Scared, everything.
Right.
It's just very emotional, and the more you start to spend time with the bees, it just fades away. And I think going in the beehive straight away is just too much. I think, especially if you are someone who never been around bees before, I think first it's just so much nicer. It's a nicer experience just sitting with them without wanting to go into their house. Again, it's, their house.
Right.
You have to wait until they invite you in.
Makes so much sense. And right, like even if you think about like another person, you don't just usually dive right into their
Yeah.
deepest, darkest, like, inner being, inner self. So it makes sense to just want to go out and sit and like, it makes so much sense too that they're so aware, they're so sensitive of your emotion and they can really feel your energy, right? Because bees are just such beings of energy. So that
Yeah.
makes so much sense that, yeah.
They can smell all the pheromones that we produce. So that's how they communicate within the hive as well. They produce these pheromones. That's why beekeepers use smokers. I don't know if you ever seen a beekeeper smoker.
Yes.
And that's
Hmm.
that's the reason why we do that, because it makes, it clouds the pheromones that they produce, and they think that there is a fire nearby, so immediately they start to consume honey just in case they have to flee. That's what you're gonna see them all sipping up the honey stores, and after they calm down. But that's initially why we use the smoke. Again, it's such a spiritual thing to do, but in conventional beekeeping it's not something like that. But it is also a ritual. You're bringing in smoke, a sacred element. It will help to. It's like being in a cloud, in a rain cloud. They will not be able to smell your emotions. So yeah, I got
Right.
stung. I think the first season when I had the bees, I was not even going close to the hives. I just went out. I had a chat with my family, and I got really upset about something. So I was like, I'm gonna go after the bees. So I went out. I was in the garden doing something. I got stung. I did not have my veils on or anything. I got stung on my head, and when
Mm.
I came back, my husband was like, he knew it straight away that I just rushed out. I didn't think. I was emotionally charged with whatever. I didn't ground
Right.
myself before. And of course, we didn't really know we didn't know each other that well with the bees, because they just been there a week or two. And immediately I
Mm.
got stung. Don't bring your shitty energy to the sacred space. That was the message.
Yeah. That's and it's so funny because I talked to somebody else too, and this is again bringing up dolphins for some reason, but um my friend Kate, she has this 20-year friendship with a dolphin named Malinka, and a solitary dolphin.
Wow.
And she said that she tried to go in the water one day when she was kind of feeling similarly to you. She's like, I'm just gonna, go in. And she said her mind was running, racing. She did not see Malinka at all. Malinka did not come up to her. But she was like, you know what, I'm just gonna swim. And then slowly she emptied her mind. And then towards the end of the swim, Malinka came back up to her. So it really reminds me that these animals are very much working at a higher realm. And like when we really want to connect with them, that we need to
Mm.
really dump our baggage before
Yeah.
we enter this holy space with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a beautiful relationship. Like, it's so rewarding. But I truly believe it is the same with any, wild creature that you try to make friend with. You know,
Yeah.
you have to take
Yeah.
your time. It takes time to build trust, and especially with something that doesn't, you can't trick them with words. As I say, words
No.
are meaningless in this scenario. It's important to talk because our words have that creates vibration. If you think it
Frequency. Yeah.
it changes the structure of our space, because it is a vibration. So I truly believe that whatever we say creates a change, if you know what I mean. It is noticeable,
Absolutely.
and everything responds to that.
Yeah, it's I think I saw online somewhere recently where it's like, what we say we create. That is so inherent to what you were just saying. Like what we put out into the universe, we're creating. So, even when I'm online or something like that, I'm always making sure I only post things that are like positive for other people. Only like, and because like I've gotten like negative things like said to, or I've been bullied in the past,
Mm.
so like what I want to put out into the universe and the world is I want to hopefully only let it be positive, and creating this space around me, pushing this positive energy. But like that frequency of when you're talking and when you're bringing out into the universe um is so amazing. Like that's our power. And like, if we want to connect to these animals, they work off of energy and frequency as well. So what we're saying and what we're feeling, that hum, that energy that we have is so important if we want to be able to connect with other beings, especially in the wild, or bees or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's magical. It's just all very beautiful. But yeah, our words, the way we communicate, I think it's so specific to our species, and it's pure alchemy if you think about it. Our words, what we, it brings us together to create change. It's one of our oldest magic that we do, and we forget. It's just, but
Yeah.
it is sacred. It is magic. Nothing else in this universe is doing it this way as we do, humans. I mean, we didn't find anyone who is doing it this way as we do yet.
Right. Yes. Exactly. To be continued.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Well, I feel like this is like a perfect place to stop. I feel like that was so
Yeah.
much beautiful. I learned so much
Oh,
from you, and I'm like so fascinated that like you've kind of invigorated this new fascination for me about bees and then their connection to death and them being psychopomps. So, and I'm very excited to see like more of what you creatively work on to connect us with them. So for people listening, let them know how they can connect with you. Yeah.
yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about the bees a little bit differently, as
Yeah.
the majority of the beekeeper would. I really hope that we're going to have more fun eating honey now, and stopping at the flowers and just saying hello to the bees. As I say, it's just so easy to keep in touch with them. I think it's just so beautiful. But yeah, you can
Yeah.
keep in touch with the bees through me. You can find Bewitching Embassy on YouTube. We have a few longer recordings, bee home recordings. So if you would like to meditate with the bee home, check out my channel there. It's quite nice. And I'm on Instagram as well as Bewitching Titanilla. TikTok, Threads. I'm even on the Chinese red notes, when all the TikTok refugees gone a couple of weeks ago. I was like, why not? I'm going too. Let's bring the bees to China
Let's
too.
just connect any way you can bring that
Yeah,
knowledge. And I think, yeah, exactly. I'll make sure to link everything below. I'm definitely going to do a bee meditation after this, and I'll let you know how how that goes,
please
because
do
that
that.
sounds so amazing.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to hear your experience with them.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Well, thank you so much, Tita, for coming on. I had such a lovely chat with you, and I hope that people listening really got a beautiful, unique perspective on bees and how they can connect and how important they are to us as well.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
flowing to the sea. I feel the energy of life force flowing all through me, and I'll allow it all to dance with my body.